am in the hospital with my mom. She's taken in for surgery, and I get a call from the agent at the walkthrough, expecting to hear everything's great. And when I pick up the phone, it sounds like he's standing in Niagara Falls.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a pipe burst on the top level. So 3 levels of water. The good news is it was freezing outside, but there was water everywhere. A, a total loss.
Welcome to a series of unfortunate real estate events, the podcast, a podcast where we talk about real issues that come up from the time a property goes under contract to the time it actually closes and what other real estate professionals can learn from these experiences. This week, I'm joined by Lorrie Majorano from Calcaney Real Estate, and we're going to walk through a few closings that just didn't go to plan and talk about how they ultimately turned out. Good morning, Lorrie. How are you today?
Good morning, Kishore. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Uh, so I start every episode with asking, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot about you, but our viewers probably know nothing.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lorrie Majorano. I'm with Calcaney Real Estate. I've been in the business since 2003. I started with Calcaney, and I've been there ever since. If you don't know us, we're a local, independently owned company with a huge footprint in Connecticut. And one of our specialties is new construction, and that's something I think most of our agents love.
Great. So you got it in 2003. What got you into real estate?
Funny story. I was working full time at the post office in North Haven at that time. And a very good friend of mine got into real estate, started with Calcaney, and she was learning how to prospect. And that's something we all should remember to do. And she would practice on me. So she would call me up and practice her prospecting calls. And we would do it over and over again. And as we were talking, I said to her, I think I can do this. And that's what sparked my interest.
Yeah, that's a different story. I've not heard that one, but yeah, we've known. I can't even tell you how long we've known each other. We've known each other for a number of years,
Yes.
and yeah, I could see that. Right, you're really good with talking to people, and um, you don't seem like you're not one of those people that are scared to talk to people, and it's kind of what you need to be able to do.
Yeah, no, I'm an extrovert for sure. However, there's a lot of really great agents that are introverts and they're great agents. So I do say this industry isn't for everybody, but if it's for you, it's really for you.
And I think the good part with being an extrovert, it's easy to meet people. Being an introvert, it's really good to just listen to what people have to say. So, you know, I and I think the other part of it is people don't realize it's not necessarily introvert versus extrovert because like I am a lot of people think I'm an extrovert because I have no problem talking to people. It's a skill I've learned, but very much it drains me to
Yep.
constantly talk to people. I'm more, all right, give me my house, cabin in the woods, leave me alone. I think I'm more one of those people. I got the keep out signs on my front yard, stay away. Uh, I'm completely kidding on that, but that's me. Like I'd rather be out in the middle of the wood by myself, clearing my mind. And that's how I get rejuvenated. Versus some people need people around. But so real estate is a full contact game, as we all know, right? And
Yes, it is.
we see a lot of is um, our clients that have hired us, a lot of times where we keep things running smoothly, we work with a lot of agents, and one of the things that we notice is in order to keep things running smoothly, it's those little issues that need to get resolved, right?
Hmm.
And I'm guessing you've got some great stories, but the stories that we want to talk about today, it's more or less those little bumps in the road that turned into boulders because something got missed, right? Whether it's title issues or inspection issues or just we get an agent that doesn't respond, which unfortunately happens.
Yep. And that's frustrating.
It is. So and I think the best way to learn through a story, so I'm going to ask is I know you've got a few in mind. Do you think of one? And let's start with, are you representing the buyer or the seller in the transaction?
Okay, I definitely had quite a few in mind. I look back over the years and I had some interesting um,
Um,
transactions happen. But the one that came to mind that I want to talk about because there's a nice happy ending.
Good.
This was in the middle of the pandemic, 2021. I got a call from a childhood friend, and a friend of hers needed to sell her house that was a little further out than where I normally go. So I grabbed a new agent in the office and asked if they wanted to co-list it with me. And we did. And it was this big, beautiful house on a lot of land. And the sellers were out of state. They met us there. And they were parting ways and starting their lives over. So this was a sale that was definitely happening. They weren't testing the market. Um,
Um,
we put the property in the market after a lot of back and forth getting it ready. And they had a caretaker neighbor who wasn't exactly doing what they were expecting them to do.
See where the
But ultimately, the property was put on the market. It was made ready, market ready. We got a buyer. We went through the home inspection, and there was a lot of little boulders there. We've navigated them successfully, and we got to the closing, the walkthrough, and it got delayed on the buyer's end a little bit. So we gave an extension, and it was moved into January just after the new year. Not a big deal. It wasn't ideal, but everybody was still moving forward. It happened to be a day that I was bringing my mom in for eye surgery, so I couldn't be there at the final walkthrough. But the agent said, "Don't worry about it. I'll be there. Everything's done now. We're good."
the famous last words.
I am in the hospital with my mom. She's taken in for surgery. And I get a call from the agent at the walkthrough, expecting to hear everything's great. And when I pick up the phone, it sounds like he's standing in Niagara Falls.
Oh my God.
Yeah. A pipe burst on the top level. So 3 levels of water. The good news is it was freezing outside, but there was water everywhere. A, a total loss. The next good news is the buyer still wanted the house. The seller still obviously wants to sell the house. We just have to figure out how to get there.
Yep.
And we all worked together. And it took some time. So now we're in 2022, and the buyer is very involved with the insurance company, as am I to represent my two sellers both out of state and communicate with both of them because they've both now started their lives over.
Yep.
And it was a long process with the insurance company. And the buyer was suddenly, I realized the buyer was more involved than they should have been with this insurance company. And that's when we started asking a lot more questions, myself, the attorney, and it turned out the buyer was trying to do something I'm really not sure. But ultimately, we said to the sellers, "You're better off cutting your losses. Let us put it back on the market." So the sellers dealt with the insurance company. We got the property back up to market standards and put it back on. We all know what was going on at that moment in time. Values were increasing rapidly.
Yeah.
This was Fairfield County.
Um,
And the sellers actually made out much better than they would have if. Yeah. So it was a happy ending with a new buyer who was very happy.
wow. I got to ask, did the oil tank run out of oil? Is that what caused the house to?
Um, I kind of forgot the reason, but it had something to do with the caretaker was supposed to be doing things that I'm not sure if he was doing, wasn't doing, or I don't remember the exact cause.
No, it makes sense, right? When you started the story, I'm like, oh, I hope it's not frozen pipes. Hope not frozen pipes. Um, and
When I picked up the phone, that's what I heard. Just what?
we've had ones where it's frozen pipes and the water's all frozen because the house got so cold.
Oh no.
Walked into it and it looked like a winter wonderland. So,
Oh no.
and that you don't realize that ice does a little bit more damage than just water because everything is frozen on top of that. So,
Oh gosh, yeah. So they had to do 3 floors gutted.
yeah. Well, I'm sure they got a good amount of money for it because of that too, right?
The timing worked well for the sellers.
Yeah. Yeah, because January of 22, it could have gone hit or miss because interest rates were going up at that time,
Yep.
right? It could have been bad for them. They lucked out.
Well, we ultimately sold and closed July 2023
Wow. Okay.
because it took that long to, you know, mitigate the damage, rebuild.
Wow. Yeah. You never know what real estate's going to bring.
No, you don't. And sometimes there's a lot of navigation, but that's our job. Every once in a while, we get that one easy deal, but that's not the norm.
That's a unicorn. And
I think you get one every career.
I think one of the reasons I started this podcast was exactly that. I don't think enough people know what you guys get involved with and how much you actually do. Right. It's
Oh yeah.
one of the agents I interviewed a while ago, it sticks out of my mind all the time. He goes, we don't show houses, we solve problems. And I was like, oh, that's a really different way to look at it. And it's true.
It's very true.
You in that situation, you solve the problem for the client, right? Um,
And that's our job.
yeah. And I'm sure you learned a lot because you guys don't deal with insurance claims, but I'm sure you learned a ton of new things during that process.
About reading your policy
Hmm.
and dealing with the adjusters for the insurance company and the owner. There is a lot of moving parts.
I'll assume, I don't know, was it amicable when they were separating or was it tense where you had to play mediator and a lot of time in the middle?
Fortunately, this was amicable.
Okay. So that makes it easier too.
Yes.
We've got ones there. It's not so amicable. Like when we bought our house as a divorcing couple,
Mhm.
we had 4 attorneys involved. My attorney, right? I didn't represent myself. My attorney, sellers, real estate attorney, and then this other divorce attorney. So
Oh wow.
anything we needed, it had to go from the agent to the real estate attorney to each divorce attorney. So something as simple as like, right, when we did our walkthrough at our closing, they left a lot of stuff behind. That took all day to resolve because you had to call one attorney and then the attorney had to call a client and they had meetings. So it's always better when they work together.
We're dealing with clients in great times of their life and in not so great times of their life. And that's one thing we have to be mindful of.
Exactly. So I got to ask, do you have another good story? Because that one was a great story. I really enjoyed that. And before we move on to the next story, what is a lesson that you would give a new agent out of this situation?
A lesson I would give to an agent is pick up the phone and talk to your client. Pick up your phone, talk to the other agent. Pick up your phone, talk to the attorneys. Sometimes these emails and text things get lost. To keep everyone on the same page with a lot of moving parts, you have to be that point person.
Perfect. That is a golden tip. And I think it's one so basic that it gets overlooked. Uh, I think there is a big difference between communicating through email and through phone call. Makes a huge difference because you can also tell
Mhm.
emotional state through a phone call that you can't, right?
Exactly.
I'll take as simple as I hate you. You could say it in a joking manner, you can say it in a serious manner, you can say it in a manner that you could see the person's frustration.
Yep.
right? So it's something as simple as that doesn't come across in email or a text.
Absolutely.
So you got a good seller story. You got had a great seller story. You got one on the buy side that you've been that
I do. And this was not that long ago.
okay.
I was actually helping a new agent with one of his buyer clients. And this was his very first buyer client. And everything else is going to seem easier after this. They were selling their house and buying a house. Sale went fine, closing scheduled. The house they're buying was an estate, dream house, exactly where they wanted their children to go to school. At the 11th hour, when we're closing on their house and their entire family is in a moving truck, including the dog, we find out that the deceased parent of the seller had signed something with wholesalers at one point in time.
Oh my God.
So there was an issue on them closing with us. The way we worked it out was that there's a time frame involved, and I forget what that is. You'll know that way better than I would.
It's about typically a year or so, but sometimes we can get away with less.
We were close to the end of that time frame,
Okay.
but we were out of their sale. So we had no choice. We couldn't wait it out for a month or whatever it was, 6 weeks it was a significant amount of time.
Right.
We worked out a hold harmless with use and occupancy, lease back at 0, because the buyers were doing the sellers a favor. So there was a lot of trust involved between the listing agent, the buyer's agent, they had both attorneys, buyer and seller. But because of that open communication, we were able to get it done. They live there today and everyone's happy.
Did it close or
Yes.
use an occupancy page?
Nope, it closed.
Wow. I'm a little surprised that it's not at the 11th hour. Right.
Probably just a little bit before that, but we found out it was a big deal when we couldn't delay the closing on their sale.
Yeah, I mean those wholesale deals can cause nightmares because people forget they sign them, or they sign them and then things don't work out and they get delayed. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, and the children selling the property had no idea that this was on there.
Yeah, there's a company out of Florida that does that. They put liens on people's houses that have turned into huge nightmares and big headaches. So, but I'm glad it worked out, right? At least you have and again, maybe that a lot of that has to do with Lorrie. I have to give you credit because it's communication, right? Because if you didn't discuss it, try to work it out, and everybody came to the same page working it out,
Sometimes you have to get creative.
sometimes you got to get creative, and having the right people to get creative with is
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Because when you get creative, there's a lot of trust involved also.
right. So they found out after they sold their house, they closed.
Not closed, but it was sold and closing, and that buyer couldn't delay and wouldn't delay.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, you made it work because otherwise that family would have been homeless, right?
Or they would have lost their buyer.
Or they would have lost their buyer. But the harder part is it was their dream home, right? And that's
Yes.
right. Um, the other thing I think people don't realize is the emotional toll
Oh gosh, yeah.
because you think about it. How stressed were you during that time?
Just a little.
Just a little, right? And it's not directly affecting us, but we take so much of our emotional burden from our clients to help them that we lose sleep over it too.
Oh, absolutely. They rely on us. We're the professional.
And we get it done. You gotta get creative. And so they were it didn't delay anything for them to get the use of occupancy, get in and move, or were they
Oh, we worked fast to get that done.
that's key.
Yep.
Again, communication, right?
Hmm.
Seems like communication is the key.
It really is.
Because without it, I mean, you couldn't negotiate that, get that worked out quickly.
Not in a text message.
Uh, Not in a text message or an email. That's a longer conversation going back and forth and figuring out what to do. I, I'm 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 happy that the clients had you on their side because that could have been disastrous otherwise.
Yeah, there was a few moments where I was sweating.
Yeah, and your core new agent, right? I mean, that is one of the worst ways to start your career is
And I said, this isn't normal. This isn't normal throughout the whole transaction.
well, and the good part for him right now, that's his next deal is going to seem like a piece of cake.
Exactly.
Not only did he decide to have a double close, he had a double close with an estate and issue. So he learned a lot on that first deal.
Yep. And he's still in the business.
That is key. Um, that is key. That is the most important part. He's still in business. How that was recently, you said?
Maybe 2, 3 years ago.
Okay.
I think just about 2 years ago.
So he's had a number of transactions after that that are
Yes.
probably some that have gone worse, but that's a challenge.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. We've got thousands of stories. Do you have any other good ones you want to share with everybody, or you want to?
I have one more that I thought of when I was telling the first one that has to do with frozen pipes and water. And this was a long time ago.
Perfect.
Again, buying their dream house.
You represent the buyers again?
Yes.
Okay.
And we were they were selling a condo, buying their dream house.
Oh,
And
that's always, I don't want to say disastrous because it's not. It needs a certain level of finesse. Let's say it
yeah,
that way. Yeah. So they're buying their dream home, selling a condo.
yep. And I'll tell you the ending first. They're still happily in this story, not in the story, in the house today.
Perfect.
But at our final walkthrough, we go in and there's water flowing everywhere. It was February. I don't remember what year. And the couple was engaged at the time. One of the dads out of state is a contractor. The owner selling the house lives next door to this day, and they're still very good friends.
Oh, that's nice at least.
Um, the house was destroyed by the water, and the owner didn't have the proper insurance.
Oh my God. Oh, that is rough.
It was really rough. He was in Florida at the time, so he didn't even know. We leaned heavily on the attorneys to guide us through this one. But he made good and repaired the house and their neighbors many, many years later.
That's that had this that could have gone really, really bad, and it's your neighbor now. So now it's even.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you know did the father help with the repairs?
He did. He came in, he calmed them down because I had a young couple crying in the house.
I could help.
And I actually called someone I knew that was in the business and said, I need someone out here right away. And this was 8 o'clock on a Friday night. And by Saturday morning, somebody was there and we were working on it.
Wow. Feel bad for that seller, but it worked out.
But it worked out, and he wanted to keep it moving forward just as much as the buyers wanted to keep it moving forward. And I think that's key.
Yeah. What ended up happening to their condo? Did they still sell it?
Yep. They sold that closed. We were able to delay a little bit. And they got,
A temporary rental.
yep, short term. They stayed with family and the house got repaired and they got to do some updates that they were planning to do in the future. But they worked with the seller when they rebuilt. And it was reasonable. So anything above and beyond what he had to do, they put in for.
That's both as bad as water is, it does end up sometimes working out in our clients' in our clients' favors, right?
Hmm.
And yes, it sucks. They had to carry the house for a little bit longer. They had to do a little, but they made their money back.
Yep.
And then your buyer client got a house that was to their needs instead of having to upgrade later on. They got it done at closing. Right. So,
At the end of the day, they saw the value. In the moment, it was tough.
oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that's always the case. Right. But again, communication, right? It's you communicated instead of with the people in the transactions, people you knew.
Yep. Absolutely.
Called in the favors from the people you knew. Communication again.
Yeah. True.
If you didn't take those steps, they may not have gotten somebody as quickly as they did.
And they might have just walked away because I was able to make that call at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and we assured them that somebody was going to get there. It calmed the situation down.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the contractor probably, the father that's the contractor probably helped out too, saying, listen, it's not a big deal.
Yes. Oh, he calmed them down too.
I can't imagine just getting engaged, looking to buy a house and having to deal with that.
It was very emotional for the buyer. And
Again, we get to play therapist, right? Or
oh, yeah.
emotional support realtor, right? It's we're there to support our clients, and I don't think that people realize we're there to support you, and it takes a toll, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
though that emotionally, I'm sure that Friday night you felt for your clients and you were stressed out and you're trying to figure out how to solve for them.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
It was now, what do I do?
Right. And I don't think enough people realize that outside of real estate, right? Agents and attorneys and mortgage brokers, we all get that, but the the public does not.
Our job is to make it look easy,
Yes.
but in the background, it's not.
No. And I think that I'm going to use that as the lesson for a new agent. Our job is to make it look easy, but in the background, it's a disaster. Right. And if you can get good at that and making it look easy, sometimes we just need to tell the stories and share the stories of our clients so that people can see we do make it look easy for a reason. So it helps alleviate that stress.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you a ton. I promise to keep it short. So we've gone through 3 really good stories. If those stories are interesting to you and you'd like to work with Lorrie, what's the best way to get in touch with
Best way to get in touch with me is call or text 203-915-3217.
Perfect. And that will be in the show notes. So if you guys missed her saying it, be sure we'll make it a note in the show notes so you can find Lorrie easily. Lorrie, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. And I really enjoyed those stories. And I'm going to keep running with our job is to make it look easy, even although it's mass chaos in the background.
Thanks, Kishore.
No problem. Have a great
Bye-bye.